challenging probably for her. So whenever I'm late, I hate it walking in. She's that kind of person. She's like me in that way, like, I'm sorry. And so I didn't want her to have to feel that, but she's going to. So, oh, there we go. Hello. God is good. What is it? God's food we deliver. It has just walked into the building. Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're continuing on the consort track, and we're continuing with questions and anything of that nature. So what we're talking about, is sex and consort sex specifically, consort relating specifically, things you learn, experiences you have. I'm in the throes of really intense practice right now, so I'm very plump, I'm ready to give you my, if you press the plum, the juice will pour. So anything you want to talk about there. We did have, so I'll just start, and then anybody who has questions, I'm happy to answer. So I posted something, and I posted about the way that sacred sexuality is often cast into this, what I see it as is a morphing of puritanical culture that is disguised very much in the same way I think that a lot of liberal, views are hostility disguised as, justice, we'll say. I sometimes think that Puritanism sneaks its way into these new forms. And when it's the new form in and of itself, it's great. And then all of a sudden something takes hold. And so I had put in, because I kept getting these women who were posting on my Instagram saying, I only have sex with one man because my womb will be impure if I have sex with many men. And it's like, your womb is a purifier. What are you talking about? We are the trees. If we are, what is it? You take in the CO2 and then you send out the oxygen. Women are on the planet to take in the smog of the planet. And our purpose here is to keep this hot enough that whatever enters, converts, and exits. And so this is a very gross way of describing it. But I often describe it like if you have a boil, you put a hot cloth on it, and that draws everything to the surface, and then it's easier to remove it. And that's very much how arousal works. It draws everything to the surface, and then it moves out easily. It does in one session, we'll say, what could take years, because you're bringing Eros and arousal to what you've kept stuck and hidden and dark in the background. And there are certain things you can only open in arousal, you can only open in a consort relationship. And those have to do with secret laws, in a sense, that can only be passed on. There's a whole world of secret laws amongst women that we would never tell men. And, male consorts need to know these laws in order to consort well, and to not have delusion in any area. The primary, when you're a consort, you're agreeing to put every single one of your pleasures, your desires, your hopes, your fear on the plane of what's called Bodhicitta, on the plane of being of benefit, getting people out of suffering, causes of suffering, and helping other people get out of suffering. And so you're putting all of it, you're putting your climax, like the most intense experience you have in the body, you're putting all of it on that plane. And so it's to be used for those purposes. In exchange for that, what you get is a certain immunity. And that immunity is to the waves of karma, the to's and fro's of karma, the rabbit holes, the places where we get lost and never make our way back. And you're freed from a certain level of delusion so long as you keep operating on that plane. And so what does that look like? Because, there's the issue of, we'll just say we are very trained and sophisticated, exquisitely sophisticated duping men. And that's primarily because we think that men are dumb and that they don't know that we're doing it, or they wouldn't know that we were doing it. And that even in our most heartfelt, passionate, honest prayer moments, we're still in the process of duping them. And so there's and then women don't see it because women are often engaged in the activity of it. And so being engaged in the activity of it, you can't really call anybody else out on it. It's like calling somebody in the cult out on the cult behavior. And so women, we have a tacit agreement to never tell a man what's really happening, or because you're breaking the code, or B, you can tell him what's happening because for you, but not for all women, if that makes sense. Like, oh, look, I'm sharing this secret code with you, but I'm not going to show you how to unlock every woman. But because you're agreeing both to be on the plane of Bodhicitta, where the thing you most want on the planet is to unlock the people in your lives to the best of your ability, to use whatever you have to do that, then your partner is doing that with you. So that's the aim. That is the purpose of the relationship itself. So you have to throw a lot into the pot. If you can imagine, first of all, you're giving all of the secrets to your consort. Then you're asking them to use them. And so there's all of these experiences that could arise, because so much of being a woman is about territoriality. So much about being a woman is about possessiveness. So much about being a woman has to do with a fundamental lack of esteem in the culture that compensates by being special, by being owned, by being noticed, by being recognized. All of these things, these are all the things that we're seeking for. And so all of these behaviors are covering, what are they covering? They're covering this fundamental power, just true, raw power. I mean, that's it. And then underneath, and then on top of that, more often than not, is an unbearable sexual appetite with a terror that were you to unleash it, it would devour everything in sight. And then on top of that is usually some kind of irritation, frustration, or disgust. That's what we use to tamp it down. And then that just kind of becomes a solid layer. And so then all of these other things develop, because everything you do now, because being a woman has to do with concealment of you're extraordinarily powerful without any weakness, with an abundance of sexual desire that needs to be run every day. Like that's the fundamental down here, and then that, and so you have to get that fed. Well, you can't reveal it, so you have to feed it in all of these secretive ways. And so then all of these strange compensations arise. Like, my worth is determined by the amount that the most desirable man desires me. That's a good one, right? And when you're training a consort, what you do is you make him the most desirable man. Most women are trained to make him attractive, but not so attractive that other women would want him. That they would want him, but never to the point where they would try to break in and get him. Definitely not to the point where you are inspiring the women in full competition. If you can get him, you can have him. You're welcome to him. In fact, he's yours if you can have him, because that means that he's choosing something else other than this plane that we're talking about. And if he's choosing something else, then he's not any good for me, in that he does nothing for me. And so I would much prefer that he does something for you and that you enjoy it. And he'll have great training, and then you just send him out. And then if the next one arises who lives on that plane, then such is the case. So there's this whole series of things that happen that men just have no idea. And we actually know it, right? We know that they have no idea. For example, I had to train my consort that if 9 times out of 10, if you say to a woman, what's your fantasy? And she says, sucking your cock, she's lying. She's lying. She's performing. She is say she's conforming to give you what she knows you want to hear, because she knows that most men are blind, and that blindness, what the blindness wants. How am I doing here? Am I going too far out? I've been out there today. What that blindness wants is I'm going to cuss. Is to fuck absence. That's what it wants. So what the ego is absence of emptiness, true self, which is emptiness, we'll say, that's kind of funny, right? The true self is emptiness, but it's pure sentience, we'll say. And so the ego, as it were, I'm not a big ego person, but I'm going to use that word for today, what we call tumescence, is the absence of that. Okay, so so then what absence craves is absence. Presence is not good for absence. Does this make sense so far? Because what a guy who's in his ego wants, and this is why we think guys are so dumb, what he wants is just to be able to do what he wants to do when he wants to do it, however he wants to do it, not have to take responsibility for her, not care. Like those are in the primal urges of him. And so any woman who offers that suggestion, right, is making a promise that you can have, because see, craving craves craving. It's such a funny thing. Like the thing with sugar, sugar moves towards sugar to eat sugar. That's how it is. And it's endless. It doesn't stop. That's what's called tanha, thirst. It never stops. It just, so what we sell then is more craving in that realm. And it's a promise to be absent. I promise to absent myself from the experience for you to do what you want to do. And then that grabs hold of him in such a way that because remember we talked about the control world, or where there's a lack of power, control becomes the stand-in for enjoyment, right? So a free woman enjoys being out of control. Not free woman enjoys being in control. And so what she sells are all of the mechanisms of control, all of them. The best way to control a guy is to promise him your absence. And then you have him by the nose. It's just like that ego. And then the worst way to control a guy is to promise presence. He doesn't, because as much ego structure as he has, it's very difficult for him to be in the presence of presence. So you have to actually titrate him into the full presence of the experience. It goes slowly. That's the other thing, is that, the other thing is, women are trained to look like we're voracious. And what you discover is women can take about that much. And that the actual having of real present experience. See, if you're selling craving can go till the cows come home. It never stops. If you're selling a kind of presence or filling, it can handle very, very little. It's like the most pure cocaine that it can handle. So these are just things that you would teach your consort. And and what you want them to know all of these so that they don't get stuck in the traps, they don't fall into the lures, because you're sending them in, and at every turn you're giving them the option. That's the important thing in a consort relationship, is it's not only is it optional, it's an honor to be there. So whereas women often are kind of holding on to a guy, hoping he doesn't go, the opposite is necessary in a consort relationship. He has to be demonstrating his true desire against every test that you're giving him every 15 minutes in order to be there. And that's for both of your safety. and for the safety of the people around you. That's not any kind of punishment. It's not any kind of troubadour testing of a man to see if he deserves you with your discrimination. No, it is, you're going into very dense, intense places. And if he's going to be pulled off track by that, we'll call it that compulsion to consume, if he's going to be drawn off track by that compulsion to consume, you have to let him keep going, because that he's going to be in your deepest parts, and his deepest parts, and the deepest parts around the people around you. And so you don't want somebody, in AA, they have this idea, it's called a 12-step call. A 12-step call is, you're sober and somebody who was sober before got drunk, and you're going to get that. They said, I need help. I need to go to a recovery house or something. And you're going to make that call. Well, they often say bring a second person, but you better make sure you're really sober when you go in there so you don't end up drinking with them. Because that's really what the consort is doing, is they're bringing that kind of sobriety to show the way back home to freedom. To freedom outside of all of this, to freedom where the place of sexuality is just it's a lovely thing. It's a really joyous doorway that you can use or not use to enter, but in and of itself, it's nothing. And very few people make it through all of the initiations and difficulties and challenges of the membrane of sexuality that lies right before freedom. That there are so many traps and lures. And so what we do is we deliberately throw ourselves into those. We just deliberately, it's like the trap of control, the trap of power tripping, the trap of, under the radar thievery, the trap of, what is it, like a woman as avatar, like, what's your fantasy, baby? I'll be it, whatever it is. Oh God, I need some help. Oh, fuck me, daddy. Whatever it is, all of that, making it through all of that. And then women making it through the desire to actually do those things, right? Because there's that moment where you're just like, this is too difficult. I am just going to shapeshift into whatever you want, right? So there's that. There's just it's just so complex. All of the traps and lures, the feeling of that you don't know what to do, in a place where everyone's supposed to know what to do, and feeling what do you do with your emotions? And your emotions end up intertwined with this. And if you cut your emotions out, then it's just cold and sort of reptilian. But if you have your emotions in, then because you're operating at such high levels of arousal, you hit obsession. What do you do? And or like massive rejection and aggression, what do you do there? And so these are all of the initiations that you go through. This is the stuff that everyone avoids. This is the reason we lock someone down, we look at them, we never look away. Because all of this arises. And how do you, on the one hand, this was one of the questions actually in the Instagram, how do you ensure that you're tended to in this when your aim is to be for other? How do you make sure you're tended to? And yeah, there's the idea of you're always tended to if your intention is on bodhicitta, but what do you do when you're in a scene? And when I say in a scene, what I mean, so I do many hours of sexual energy practices a day. In that, with a partner, in that experience, scenes arise. Those scenes arise where you share experiences, whatever it is. And what happens if one of those lodges inside of you? What do you do there? And how do you say you have to be perfectly sensitive and attuned to everything that I'm thinking and feeling and doing, while at the same time not caretaking, while at the same time not changing your behavior as a result? Like, how do you do that? These are the nuances, and this is the place of and I think that yidam and deity meditation is incredible in the intimacy that you can have. I happen to like the risk and danger of doing it with a bodied person, you know. I think that's really, it adds to the fun of you know, like I could be destroyed at any moment. That's the feeling. And if you aren't in that feeling, you aren't in consort arousal. There are a lot of things you could be in, and a lot of those things are attractive, and a lot of people want those. But for consort arousal, you want to be on the edge of destruction at every moment. Very much how they describe the flow experience. It's only triggered when you're in life or death experiences, and you have the feeling that this is life or death. And so you want to keep finding that edge and finding that edge. Whereas most of the time what we're doing is trying to dial back from that edge. No, baby, let's not talk about that. Or, you know, or you both really agree. You both really agree to not talk about that. Like, you know, you know, when you, for example, my consort, you know, he's an extraordinary con artist. And so he has managed to figure out how to perfectly shapeshift to a woman's kind of yearning comfort desire, right? And so he knows how to lockstep show up perfectly there in such a way that his caretaking can pass for attention. And so nobody wants to address that. He doesn't want it addressed. I don't want to address it. I don't want to say like, hey, you know, let's look at all of the ways that you're a con artist, all of the ways that you've conned me, all of the ways that you've gotten over on me, everything that you've done. And then have him bring them to the surface and then put them in the sphere of arousal. You know, that's the stuff we don't always want to do. Or we want to do it in order to, like, because we knew we were feeling something and we want to punish them or something of that nature, but not as part of our practice to bring it into the dynamic activity of the relationship. And, you know, so anyway, so do we have questions? Okay, I'll do questions. Okay. I'll probably have more than as I'm answering these questions. We'll see.
Lila from Instagram says, I heard you talk about logging onto the network. Can you describe more about it?
Oh my God, I talked about that. That's very funny. I talked about that. I usually keep that in-house. And so, you know, there is a very much like the mycelium network. Or if anybody's familiar with like Tibetan Buddhism or, you know, some yogas, there are realms, we'll say. There are realms that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas tend to, that you can log into. And when you log into those, you have access to all of those who are logged onto it. And you can basically just sit in the experience and tune into, it's almost like, here's what I'll tell you, Lila, this is what I'm going to tell you. There's this thing called cam soda. And it's these live cam girls doing sex things. But I'm really going to describe, you don't have to go onto it, but I think everyone should go onto it just for fun. And so the page will have 50 girls, 50 squares, and then there'll be 9 pages, we'll say. And you can just, anything you would ever want. It is there. And then you can click the girl and then you get to see the whole show. Oh, just incredible. And then you can look for different things, you know, like Latina is one, and younger girls or whatever it is over the age of 18, you know, dominatrix type girls, whatever they are. You can, and then so you can have styles that you're interested in. Okay, the network is a lot like that. In that it's in the energetic mind. Which is very similar. And so I'll tell you something else to do to have an idea what I'm talking about. And that's to watch these near-death experiences, or there's this one guy who's so good. I'll have Sophia put him up, who does outer body experience conversations. There's two. One is the Monroe Institute, and then so they talk about what it's like to have an outer body or etheric or what's the one that begins with A? Astral experience. And Tibetan Buddhists will tell you that these are just as tangible, palpable, real as anything in the material world. You aren't like sitting there fantasizing. If you've ever done psychedelics, good psychedelics, you're sitting there and it arises for real right there. So when you, so there is an erotic network, a network of Eros, and there are people diligently at work keeping the erotic blood of that network going, so that at any point somebody could just tune into it or log into it, and you have we'll say temporary passwords. Eventually you get a permanent password when you decide to be a contributor, which is like a bodhisattva. When you decide to be a contributor to keep the juices of the network going, that's gonna, you agree that's your life practice. You put those energies in there, and then you have a permanent log on. And then you can tune into where everybody's at, where your various friends are at, everything in their entire erotic body you have access to. And then you can draw whenever you need it, and put your own little touches in there, your own little flavors. And so then people often say, well, how do I do that? How do I tune in? I have two suggestions. My first is just very simple. Feel your arousal, whatever it feels like for you. Right now, all of my erectile tissue is swollen. There's a line that runs from my belly button to my clitoris. It's just pure electric. My introitus is wide open. My labia are heavy. Everything is sitting. So I just begin to notice. It's the equivalent to mindfulness, only for your erotic body. You notice that. You notice your arousal. Inside of your arousal is really where the channel or network goes. And to whatever extent you can, you just drop your attention there and you just hold it there, and then you listen. And then all of a sudden you'll start feeling waves. And it takes some time, and then you can decipher, oh, wait a minute, that feels, oh, that's nice, and then you can feel, oh, somebody is sending me a very strong, clear, steady light with a tremendous amount of hope that I'll sense it. And so then I'll relax so that I can receive it, and then they can know it's received. And you just begin, you can spend days here, by the way. It's a really great place to be. And so that's my first suggestion. And then my second suggestion is, it's actually much easier if you're in the process of deliberate heightened arousal. So I don't recommend masturbation, but I don't recommend it because more often than not, people use it to feel less, not to feel more. So if you have enough of a practice to use it to feel more, to raise the arousal, to get on that 9 3/4 platform and enter into the network, then do that. But usually people are trying to snuff feeling out, and that's not it's get it peak, and you'll know when it's peak because it's like right before you're going to go over the edge, and you have to hold your breath, and then it spreads out, and that's where you're looking, and that we call that feeling, that spreading out feeling in between plateau and climax, we call that flight. That's how you get into flight. So then you just stay in flight, and then you don't have to look for anything yet. Just enjoy the feeling, because more than you can handle will come in shortly enough. You don't have to search for anything. That's usually how you chase it away, is if you search for it. So then you just enjoy the feeling of flight. You just, oh, that's so good. And then sort of the way you're spinning a top, and then it goes on its own after a while. You just touch it to keep it. That's sort of what you'll do in terms of your masturbation. You're just keeping that plane right there until it just keeps spreading and spreading, because that's what arousal does. Arousal pushes out and spreads. That's why it's so profoundly healing. And then you just listen and feel, and then you'll feel different things. And I try to be as you could tune into my network. My little cam girl window. It's only for the wild ones. You should know that. But I try to be extraordinarily accommodating and welcoming when people pop in. I can feel people are often nervous. Is this really working? Can you hear me? I can hear you. And then I've been giving etiquette rules, etiquette. I don't think it's called etiquette rules, but it's etiquette. So some very good etiquette is to offer. People, when you get lost in that moment where you're like, is anything happening here? My feelings, you can just and just see what you can do to offer a good feeling that's inside of you. We tend to hide those or hold those, or not. We're not sure if they're real. You're just going to offer that. If you log into the network and you feel someone, then you just offer a warm feeling. You'll know my feeling is very much how I feel here. It should be. It should be an extraordinarily stable, steady, clear feeling with an entire freaking wild world happening on top of it. But whichever one you want to tune into, and constant reception. There's nothing but reception inside of it. And so you'll want to just offer something, just offer any kind of good feeling you can, and then see what happens from there. And so then what we call sky dancers are those who learn how to operate inside of the network with other people, with other energies, we'll say, and how to do it well, how to do it graciously. And the good news is, if you do it poorly, there won't be any horrible consequence other than you'll be a fallen bikini. You'll be kicked out. You'll be out of flight is the only thing that will happen. But okay, so you're learning to fly. It's very good. Let me see. I think that's it for now. If you have more questions, I'm always happy to answer. I usually don't answer these weird ones, because that's the other thing I was going to say is listen to the telepathy tapes. The biggest challenge that people have from getting off the platform into flight is believing it. That's 99% of it is, am I making this up? Is this even real? Are people just crazy? What are they talking about? And so I always say this, I listen to things that support it. I listen to my Tibetan Buddhists. They're the ones who have the most authority when they talk about it. But these telepathy tapes are pretty, by the woman who researched all of the non-speaking autistic people. And they meet on this mountain energetically, and then they can communicate what happened for each of them. It's a profound thing. Anything about near-death experience, anything from out of body experience. There's some excellent material in yoga. There's a book called The 9 Bodies by Philip Moffitt, where he does excellent work on being able to discriminate which of the 9 bodies you're operating from in a yogic theory. They shockingly don't include the erotic body, but that's okay because we do. But be looking for these things that support that natural sense that flight is possible. That's because it's so cheesy, but as soon as you believe it, you can do it. And then once you do it, there's nowhere else you want to be. And then the other thing is to recognize what flight is. So anybody who's ever had that feeling where they've been writing, if you're doing art, and you just feel this kind of liftoff, you feel that you're on this plane of inspiration, the wind is at your back, that's flight. That's what I'm referring to when I'm talking about flight. When you're in that space, you are open for all others who are in flight to be communicating with or connecting with you. All irritation, tumescence, everything is being out of flight. That's all it is. So there's all these ways we want to fix it, right? You're like, feel a little too much, feel a little grumpy. You want everybody in the world to change. You want politics to change. Then you want to go to therapy. Then you want to write your sad list. There's all these things you want to do. And I say this often, although it's very tacky. I talk about the teacher that I had who said, Nicole, you work so hard, all you had to do was fuck me. And people are so offended when I say it, but I point to it because once you learn about flight and once you learn about, consort relationships, you realize that is the most true thing. You learn how we default to work or trying or controlling or making something when all you really had to do was get aroused. That's the only thing you had to do. And then when you get aroused, that's the only time you could actually solve the problem. Otherwise, you're just working around it. You're working really hard around it. And have you ever noticed it never gets solved, ever? And that's why we have trauma as a death sentence. Because all you're ever doing is thinking about it and circling it. It's like, no, just get aroused. Just get aroused and eroticize it. Take everything in there, turn it on, and it's not only healed, it becomes your strong point. It becomes the sexiest thing about you. And when I say sexiest, I mean sexy as in free. Free becomes your freedom, and it becomes your primary tool of freedom. Because arousal eats tumescence. Tumescence is the congestion that we have anytime you don't express a desire or art or something builds up. It's called tumescence. In the world, it's called trauma. We just say it's a lack of expression that appears as shame. It appears as guilt. It appears as irritation. It appears as less than. It appears as more than. Fame and ill repute. All of those things. So all of the unsavories that we have, that's tumescence. It's congestion that makes up a clog in the psychic nervous system. The clog causes a dysregulation. The dysregulation occurs as some form of insufficiency or dissatisfaction. So I really went there. What was I even talking about? I was really into it though. Afflictions. I was talking about afflictions and tumescence. And so arousal eats your tumescence. That's the fuel for arousal. So you want to, that's why so many artists are so sad, right? Because they're collecting their sadness. They're collecting all of their tumescence for their arousal to eat, to get lift off on that rocket, to create art, whatever that is, right? So you want to, and then you run out, eventually you run out of your own tumescence. This is shocking. You run out of your own shame and trauma. And so then you have to go eat other people's. That's your work. You're like, I won't be able to be in flight unless I have some irritation, sadness, shame, guilt from other people. Will you loan me some of your guilt and shame? So, but can we do it in a way that has arousal so that we're converting it for you? And then, and then pretty soon that's, you're running a train on that tumescence is what I'm telling you. And so I know, I'm a little spicy today. What you live your life in terror of comes to be what you just savor. It's like the ecstasy of shame and that passion of guilt that oh God, and like in the erotic experience, like those are the high points because they're the most salient energies. People don't have very salient equanimities. They have it's a little bit more dispersed. It's not like concentrated, hidden in a corner like black mold. You're just like a black mold fiend. Like, give it to me. So it's like that.
Francesco asks, how does a man with a rapacious sexual appetite keep focus, disseminating what is real desire from pure gluttony?
I was just asked that question this afternoon, because, they're all karmic threads. All of these pieces are karmic threads, and the issue is that they aren't integrated, right? Like a rapacious sexual appetite, it's great by me. And it can be dangerous in the world, right? And maybe not something you want being the driver of your bus, you know, although mine is, so there you go. So somebody was asking me, and because here's the thing, there is no conceptual, this is one of the greatest myths that exists. And that is that there is a conceptual way to control the primal impulses, that there's a conceptual way to control addiction, that there's a conceptual way to control overdrive and sexuality, that there's a conceptual way to control, you know, will to power. There isn't. In fact, all that happens is, if you remember, there's power, then there's sexual desire, and then there's a layer. The layer is disgust and shame, right? And so that's all that happens. If you try to use something conceptual to stop these things, just say no, or all of the freaking programs that are out there, then all that happens is, yeah, they're not running rampant. They're just underneath this layer of shame and disgust, and then weird things end up happening from that. But the primary thing that ends up happening is that you have no vitality and a life of permanent insufficiency and dissatisfaction, because all of these are supposed to be alive and active, but they're just supposed to be integrated. And so how do you integrate that one in particular? So the first thing you do is you honor it. That is the opposite of what we do in this culture. And we honor it as the prima materia, the greatest gift, the most vital gift that exists for human beings. It's what pushes the leaves open in a plant, you know, in a flower. It's life itself. And so the first thing we do is we tend to treat it like it's a problem. And no, we're the problem. It's the solution. And so to really honor it, and you have to get underneath the layer of shame in order to do that. And then, you know, and then I have infinite gratitude for mine. I always suggest that for everybody, but that's up to you. And then the hard part, and this is where I say the path of Eros is the path of disillusionment. It really is. You have to see all of the games of samsara. You have to see them, and without rejecting them or hating them. You have to see every single time a woman faked it, which is about 99% of the time. You have to see that. And you have to see every time you bought it. And then you have to see who bought it. And what you're going to discover is that it's that blind drive that wants her absence that bought it. Well, that's humbling and humiliating. But that humbling and humiliating energy is what begins to temper the sexual drive. Compassion and reality are the curatives for overdrive. And so you just begin to put those in until it's not such a live wire. Then what I did, and this is more advanced, but you actually sound like a fairly advanced person from the question you asked, is it's very difficult, so I wouldn't do this alone, is you take that drive, and right now it's plugged into materiality. That's why it's on overdrive. If it's, you know that it's on overdrive if you find yourself doing things you don't want to do, or that other people don't want you to do. Well, although unless you're, you know, doing the things that people don't want you to do that are good things for them, but that's also advanced. So, that's the signifier. Or if you have any kind of blackout, what most men are trained to do is to, in the moment of high arousal, defer to that drive itself and just let reality go on that, and to drop or lose consciousness or volition. A great practice for everyone I have a teacher that I use. You can use whoever you want. In Climax, throughout, from the moment the bell goes off, I visualize that person, or you can visualize a deity, whatever you wish. But I keep that because staying conscious in Climax is the most difficult time to stay conscious. So if you can stay conscious there, then you can inject consciousness into the drive itself. You can get enough that you can unplug it. It becomes a crazy live wire and you get obsessed with everything. All of your klesha are just crazy at that time. So you gotta grab this thing and then you gotta plug it into your bodhicitta. You got to plug it into your vow if you have one. And if you're asking this kind of question, I'm giving you this kind of answer. I hope you do. If not, then you can borrow just a simple vow. I vow. And by the way, you don't have to take vows with me, but this is just a suggestion if you wish. I vow to get out of suffering, the causes of suffering, and help others get out of suffering. There's more complex than that, but that's a good start. And then you plug it into your vow. And then this thing that was working against you is now working for you entirely in your favor, and it's driving your bodhicitta. And so then your bodhicitta is just like, oh man, it's just like an all-terrain vehicle. It can go anywhere. It's not afraid of anybody or anything because it knows it's like a transformer. You knock it down, it gets back up because it's got that raw sexual drive driving your bodhicitta, your aim to be a bit of it. Nobody has a chance. That's why I think it's the best path in the world. So that's that.
I believe we have a question in the room.
Yeah.
Rachel King.
This is amazing. You're talking about Climax, and you talked about a few weeks ago where you open the window of Climax and then extend that. And then my question is, how do you not tip? And is that just like time on the mat and experience, or like, yeah, I've been like able to open the window, stay in the window, but then I don't know how to not have it tip.
What brings you up?
Not my climax, my partners. What brings me out? I guess from listening to what you just said, maybe not staying as conscious. Like you have consciousness, and then it like I get lulled into like the enjoyment of the sensation rather than like leaned in.
Great. Yeah, sensation is one of the great hypnotists. There is no sensation that is as pleasurable as open space. So you start there. Then you begin to, where women often get lost in a man's orgasm, like where they can't keep the window open and keep going, is they feel the thrill of their power over a man's body. And that one always takes you out. It always promises you that it's going to elevate you, but it always takes you out. It's because it's self-reflexive. It causes you to look back at self. So in that moment you reify, and then you lose the open space and the ability to because what she's referring to is, climax brings you up to a membrane. The membrane is good and bad, right and wrong. And if you break through that, you can just, soar for a good period of time. And each membrane has its challenges, things that you run into that knock you out. And so she's saying she's brought back to the platform of identity. So then she can know that one of her lures, one of the things that brings her back to the platform of identity, which brings you out of flight, is sensation, pleasurable sensation. So then if I were guessing, if that's okay, I would say you're trading in sensation. I'll make you feel good. And because you are only beholden to what you sell, which is a really important thing, especially for women to learn, because mostly what we sell is confinement. And so then you end up confined in your own offerings. And so I would just sell freedom. And you'll have less customers, but I don't mean, she's not a prostitute, by the way. Yeah, but you'll have, less Bodhisattva customers, but they'll be of a higher quality. Or it'll be of a higher quality in the person. Meeting people at the level of sensation, it's like great for a little while, but like, then what? You just start having the diminishing returns. You want to meet in the sky and see what the two of you can do there. That's what you want to, right? And you want to be able to turn on a dime and change the flavor, and all of a sudden have something totally new arise in you, something totally new. And then all of a sudden, you want to look like you're crashing, we're going down, it's over. And you want to soar back up, and then you want to draw something out for how good that ride was, right? That's what we want. That's the thrill and delight of it. Not just like, baby, I'll make you feel so good. Let me rub on that. It's like, that's great. And then that's something in your repertoire. But the aim, I think, for every person should be just have an extraordinary repertoire so that you can meet everyone in all of these just exquisite places that live inside of each of us, all of our little hidden pockets. I was just saying to my consort today that it takes a long time to fly with somebody, very long time. And then because there's all these tests your body, your being, your psyche, whatever is doing, and so you don't know, you do not know. And I love this in Judaism. You wear an opaque veil because they say you don't know who you're marrying. There's no way to know who you're marrying, and I like that. And that's sort of like what the consort relationship is like. You're started, but you don't have any idea until that gate opens, and it took us a year until that gate opened. You open the gate, and you're like, okay, and you can guess all of the things that your relationship is going to be, how it's going to form, how it's going to express. And then the gate opens of natural arousal, where all of the room of hidden archetypes, of suppressed desires, repressed desires, shame and guilt, that room, the basement, all of the stuff that you didn't want to deal with or work with, you didn't want anybody to see, all of that. And then all of a sudden you open that door and then it comes alive. And then if you're beholden to arousal, and I am, then you have to carry out everything that was hidden in that room. Even though it's finite in and of itself, because it's tumescence, it's material that never got expressed, you have to bring it into full expression for the person. That's your job, so that they know who they are, wholly with all of those elements inside of them, right? And so you're like, and then you're discovering like, wow, you're really different from how you presented. And you can't be upset because they didn't know. None of us know who we are until that door is open, until there's a kind soul who comes, I would say kind soul, who comes and opens that door and says, I can unflinchingly be with you in the viewing of this in you. Not only can I be with you, but I can draw out all the characters. Not only can I draw out all the characters, you know what I can do? I can stick them in flight and we can fly together. And then you get all of them into flight, and then you get to see who they wanted to be before they were stuck in the basement, before they got distorted by, I hate this example, but the chickens that are brought up in cages, and you take them out of the cage and they're still in the shape of the cage, and that's what happens with our desires. We stick them in these cages, and then all of a sudden they're like a manipulative bitch. But then you take them, you give them some room, you stick them in flight, and that is a clear-eyed woman who can take you where you want to go. It's the exact same thing. It just needs the space and the flight in order to become what it was meant to be before it got stuck in the basement. We'll do a couple more questions tonight.
Chloe asks, how do you create yourself as presence instead of absence?
That's a really great question. It's such a great question, because I think a lot of the women in my life are going through this question right now. Doesn't it sound great? It sounds like I am presence rather than absence, and therefore I am not seen as inferior. And but it's very difficult. So and it's expensive. It's like I just said to Rachel, you'll have fewer people interested. There's a huge market for women who are absent. It's just huge. Incredible, and not that much for presence. So that's your first. They're kind of like true desire initiations about whether or not you want to really be presence, and what that would mean, because it's either a life of a sort of kind of power, influence, or sway, or allure over men. That kind of power where you can get him. That one, that's the power of absence. The power of presence isn't that. And I often say, devils can entice, angels can only invite. And so that's very much how it feels like. Presence can only be there before and support the deeper desires. But you actually get your desires better worked out with a presence person. I'm just going to say that, just a little plug. But you have to know, this world is an addict, right? Look at us with sugar alone, or look at us with consumption, or we're driven by addiction. And so that addiction to chasing or craving or yearning, nothing. In fact, our entire culture is based on craving an absent woman. Look at the way I saw this picture of this woman. I was on an airplane, and she was like in this, like, she looked like her legs were broken into a fawn position, and her eyes. And it's like, oh, that's what we want our models to look like. That's what we want our actors to look like. What we sell is an absent woman who you could violate. That is the turn on underneath all of our advertising. So you won't be recognized in a certain way. Does that make you won't be recognized as attractive. That you will be recognized as something different, but at first it won't be recognized as the kind of attractive that absent girl can walk in, and then there's layers and layers of it, because there's like the non-emergent woman, who's kind of always behind the scenes. That's another version of it, right? That's a big version in our culture. The withholding woman, all of these things, all of that sells. And then presence, how do you make that transition? So I first have to tell you why you wouldn't. and the only reason that you would is that you ran out of options. You just realized. It's like that. It's just like that feeling, like I sugar spike too often. I'm willing to let the sugar go. That finally happens, and then you go through a detox, and the detox is where You don't feel as attractive. You don't feel, there's a whole series of things that you don't feel. You feel like you lost your magic powers, because you can't do or be or sell anything now. Now there's a self, and this self has desires. And the desires conflict with the culture, and they don't only talk about sucking his cock, they talk about her pussy, and they want attention and care and exquisite care, and oh no, there's a whole set of demands, and now we're also in a world where women are difficult and demanding, right? And so that we're told that. And I just want to say this one really funny fact, and that's this, they did this study, and that the women who survived breast cancer, they looked at their interactions with doctors, and the women were all called difficult, or there's another word, I can't remember what it was, but it's a word that women don't want to be. It's like difficult, because they asked so many questions. And they had so many demands. I think it was demanding. I think they were called demanding. And those were the women who lived. And so I just want to say it's very similar with your own desire. It is the women who are not here to be the receptacles. That's the only way you will actually live. And more importantly, it's the only way that you'll be able to bestow life. In a dead world of, dead-eyed men who are just like the guy who said with the overdrive, that overdrive is because there's so many women who are receptacles who refuse to be presence, because presence absorbs overdrive. So if somebody with a very, aggressive element has sex with me, I just absorb it. I don't, but I don't like let it run. I just absorb it in such a way that it transforms into something delightful that doesn't strangle him or me. But you have to have presence to do that. So, so then how do you make the transition? And the biggest thing is it's like, how do you get sober? You stop drinking. And then, but the reason that people keep drinking is they enjoy the secondary benefits of it, right? And so there are a lot of benefits to being absent, a lot of benefits. Like when you're a consort, that is when, so I'm a consort, I have a consort. The greatest danger are absent women. One, because they could never be filled up. There's no filling up an absent woman, so she's always hungry. Two, they're hungry. So when you're hungry, you're unscrupulous, right? You'll take anything. You're hungry and you go grocery shopping. That's why they tell you to go grocery shopping full. So, and three, they can hook into a man's biology. And so they can take him off of you. They can take him off of his path, just like that. It's just like that. So and then, so you have to say, if you can be taken off your path, you should go. I mean, but you have to live there. So anyway, so present, and and so when you're the present one, that's where you're living. So you have to live in a very strong state of non-attachment and determination to offer. That's your, like, whatever it is, what is that? Bless your heart. Bless your heart. I wish you joy on your journey. And, and then every now and then one makes it back to you. And that's the delight. So, you determine. I used to always say, if you can run. So if you can run from getting present, run from it, do. Because you're not going to be able to do it until you can't help but do it. Does that make sense? You can't force yourself into presence. It just has to be like, I tried everything. I tried everything. And the only thing that will bring gratification is this sentience flowing through me like lifeblood that I can't do anything but share with other people.
Danielle.
Courtney Leposky liked that one. I got she flirted with me eyebrows. Well, she's going to log onto the network later. I'll be seeing her.
Danielle Lovelight asked, Is it good to have more than one consort at a time at a given time in one's life, or should we focus on one consort dynamic until it dissolves and then move to another?
Well, it depends. I mean, so I mean, I am going to say, like, this is, I don't know why I'm talking about this, and I shouldn't be. I talked to Changhua, Drupon, like, what am I doing? Why am I talking to people about this right now? Why am I turning on a network? This is insane. This is total insanity. So you just need to know that. And he said a great thing. He said something, I was like, I do not understand why I'm doing this. And he said, falling in love and desire, was it falling in love and desire, falling in love, desire, and death all have their own timing, and you can't get out of it. And I was like, okay, because that's how it feels right now. So I want to be really clear. Maybe we need to have a list of consort primers that I mention in these talks that people need to know. So in order to, consort training is extreme. I mean, like it's at the top of Tibetan Buddhism. So and that's, like, you can be a 30-year practitioner and never become a consort. So I just want to say that the best way to learn how to be a consort is to be someone's consort who can control your energies. That's what you're looking for. Now, I'm not a Tibetan Buddhist. My friend Amy was telling me, you have to have a consort in Tibetan Buddhism. It's some insane thing, like sucking something through his dick straw. Put a straw in the dick. He has that much control over his energies. I don't know about that, but you have to be able to control a man's climax, because you have to be able to bring him to the most, like, insane screaming peaks, and then you have to drop him and let him coast in flight so he can learn how to enter past the membrane. So that means you have to have total control over your own energies to start with. And so I was a consort to someone, and that's how I learned how to be a consort. And so the most important thing is to understand are you live for them. Your turn on, you don't have your own turn on anymore. You've extinguished that. And so your turn on is their turn on. And so you turn on to enlivening whatever turns them on. What turns them on? Oh, what turns them on is what's hidden down there in that basement room that I talked about. You're pulling all of that stuff out, and you're going like this in arousal, and they're like, I hate that. Oh, yeah. And then you're just doing that until every single one of those becomes just a turn on. And every illicit thought they've ever had, every, woman they wanted to do that they shouldn't have wanted to do, that they did, went to confession over, you're pulling all of that out, because trust me, it doesn't go anywhere. You're just putting it in the arousal stream. And, oh my God, now that's the fountain. That's what you live inside of. So I just want to, it's a high intensity experience. And then, so you start by being somebody else's consort, and then you become a consort. And then what was the rest of this? Did I say all of my, what are they called? My small print disclaimers.
So the question was, is it good to have more than one consort?
So then is it good to have more than one consort? Well, so with them, you will oddly be having many consorts through them, because you are wanting them to, you are teaching them, training them, whatever you, muscle memorying them into, I don't like the word teaching in this context, because it isn't teaching. It's like you're like an eagle, and they're on your wings, and you're showing them how to fly, and you're showing them how to fly with women. I am, as a woman, and I know women better than most people. And so you're training them how to work with arousal with all of this information about how the woman works. And so so those women essentially all in some way become your lover by extension, not necessarily directly. They aren't necessarily touching you, and they aren't necessarily, well, if you're really honest, they'll be touching him in some ways, but that's crazy. So I won't talk about that. But we'll just say for now, he'll energetically be touching many women. He has to. That's his training. And he has to know how to keep a single pointed focus on his vow, no matter what conditions are coming his way. And, you know, he may or may not make it. We don't know. But that's what he's learning to do. So you're sticking him in all of the most complex energy fields that you possibly can, you know, of course, equipping him and how to navigate it, and then going with him essentially, and saying, okay, how you doing here? How you doing here? How you doing? So that he can be free. That's the aim. So then that's a lot. That's going to be a lot. Now, you may just be a hoe and like, you know, a lot of consort booty, and you could do that too. You know, there are no rules. But I do want to say that very few people on the planet, I don't know, maybe Padmasambhava had the bandwidth to have more than one consort. It's a handful. It's definitely a handful, because you have everyone's psyche and well-being on your switchboard, and you're having to stay permanently logged in. You know, I never log out now, so that I can always be sensing all of the psyches that are being touched in the experience. One more.
Lamar asks, how would you advise a woman trapped in that field to get back in touch with her stripped assertiveness and anger?
Somebody trapped in that
I think
field,
the previous one, I think it came in, we were talking about presence and absence.
in the absence field, who's stuck in anger.
Who's trapped in the absence field, with her stripped assertiveness and anger, how does she get in
Oh,
touch with
well, let me tell you, those women are the most angry women on earth. That's why I didn't understand the question. Let me see. How would you advise who's stripped of her assertiveness? So the first thing I would do is I would say she's not stripped of anything. She's not disempowered. She's made a choice. This is really important. Choice and volition and agency are the foundations of Eros. And so there's so often we want to go passive, right? We want to go like, I was stripped of this, or I lost this, or rather than I created the conditions that made that go, right? That's really how it works. And so you have to be living at that level of volition in order to make the transference over. And you will be shocked by how insidious this happened to me mind is. This just happened, or this somehow happened, or they don't see me, they don't know me, which is another version of this just happened. It's infinite. And so you have to recognize, you have to move each one of those into the middle ground of choice and volition. I chose to relinquish my assertiveness for the secondary benefit of attention. I chose to suppress my anger for the secondary benefit of looking easy to men in order to get attention. I chose to, and you have to take every single one of those and put those into a choice. And you have to understand the secondary benefit, because that's what keeps you locked in it. And then you have to agree to relinquish it. And then you have to move to the new behavior. Well, the new behavior is going to be, as I said, not a delight, because all of a sudden you're going to have backed up anger, backed up assertiveness, backed up desire. You're going to have crazy consumptive desire, all of these things, because you never got handled. Let's be clear. When you're that lady, he might like suck your pussy for 10 minutes, but then that's it. We got to get to him, right? Because that's the agreement. So you're going to have all this backed up. Oh, God, you're just going to need to be handled. You're just going to look like a bossy, grumpy, horny toad. You're just going to. And so then you're going to have to, start practicing those, and you're going to do them clumsily, and but you're going to practice, and then eventually I can tell you, if you do it in arousal, everything is accelerated tenfold. So eventually it just integrates, and then you just fly. And when you fly, things happen in the same way Stephen Kotler said, what was it? 1 hour of work in flow is 40 hours of work in non-flow. So in flight, 1 hour of human transformation is 40 hours of human transformation out of flight. So the things look like they're so difficult and they'll take forever. They take an hour. All of a sudden, you know, that endless depressing shame about being a Catholic who masturbated in their mom's basement, that's gone in an hour. Now, it doesn't mean you don't go and pick it back up. A lot of people love to, they're just like, oh, did you see my shame? Here, I almost abandoned it. It's just how it is. How's that?
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. We will take a few reflections. If you're in the room, you can raise your hand if you have a reflection. If you're on Zoom, go ahead and raise your virtual hand, or you can send one in on the chat, and we will start over there with Bob.
I've really appreciated the way you've laid out the practice of arousal in these talks, and love how you brought in the tumescence into it, and then explained it or described it as a spreading between, I think, the plateau and the peak as being the area where you hit flight. And yeah, that's just like opened up a whole new level of sight on it for me. So I appreciate it.
Start flying, Bob.
Yeah.
Log on. There's somebody, there's a rap band, and they, you know how Maybach music. Well, there's another one that has log on. I'll find it for you guys. So yeah, log on.
Lisa has one.
I just like wrote these little sound bites of yours. Can I? There's no sensation as pleasurable as open space.
That's true.
You're only beholden to what you sell.
That's true.
Craving craves more craving.
True.
We sell confinement, sell freedom instead, so you'll have less customers, but they'll be of higher quality. Sugar eats sugar, and arousal eats tumescence. I really, really love that one so much. And what Trupon told you, falling in love, desire, and death has its own timing, and you can't outrun or control it. So I'm just like feeling a lot.
You feel so good.
So grateful. You like never give up.
Never give up. That's because I hooked my sexual overdrive into my vow. Highly recommended.
And I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Rachel.
The way you described at the beginning that you're on the edge constantly between life and death, you not only say that, you like transmitted that throughout the whole talk of genius and like newcomer, and that feeling of not knowing what to do or how to do it, but then like locking on to power, and just felt like that carried by that wave of power through the whole talk. Thank you.
I like that. You talked a little fast, but I like the feeling of it. Oh, there, that's a little better, huh? Hard to get that one out. Thank you.
We have Marianne on the Zoom.
I have so enjoyed these talks, and the arousal is palpable. I'm just trying to wrap my head around all of the consort training, and it just feels like there's so many good nuggets. I'm re-listening to some of the talks because they're so good and so juicy and full of like, oh my God, like there's so many options of how to handle this life and our relationships. And I so appreciate the way that you give so freely this valuable drops of wisdom that you just don't get anywhere else. So thank you.
Really? Wait, just a sec. Yeah. Exactly. Look him. Thank you. Truly, thank you. Feels good.
And Matthias? We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can
Yes.
hear you now.
All right. Love it, Nicole. Thank you so much.
I love you. You are such a great compliment for me because we're kind of really different people, but with very similar hearts. And so you come in as a nice counter energy. Go ahead.
Thank you. I've got 3 today.
Okay, bring it.
Grab your
Marketer.
grab your Eros from your klesha in the basement and plug it into your Bodhicitta to fly.
You're so good. Very good. Okay, we'll use that.
Number 2, tumescent eating arousal is your pass to the networks.
That's right. It's true. That's so good. I love what you pull out.
Integrated primal power conceives beyond concepts.
We like it. You did it again. Once again, 3 good strokes. Thank you. All right. Well, that's the talk. Tomorrow is Wednesday. I'll be here tomorrow at 1. That's what I'm doing. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow, and thank you all. Thank you.